Hey everyone. This video was a request from a comment. I think your name is Virtue Formula, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, yeah. Thanks for the request. I'm surprised I haven't done this video yet, but better now than never. And I think I'm gonna make like multiple versions of this. So I might even put a part one in the title because I got a lot to say about Christianity. Maybe I can start with my own experience with it because I grew up. My mom is Anglican, and my dad is just like one of these non denominational churches. So, growing up, church was actually pretty fun for me. I used to get up like on Sunday morning, dress really fast, like faster than everybody else. Like, when are we going? When are we go-" And like, even if we were just going to like the kids' service or whatever, it was still such an exciting uh, event for me. I'm not sure why. I guess it was that element of spiritual uh connection with God and everything. Like you're supposed to act this way in church because you're talking to God or something. Yeah, it was there. And for us, like I can barely remember any times my parents have really mentioned like if you do this or that you're gonna burn in hell, blah blah blah. Like I always say it's so hard to find a Bible thumping Anglican. They just don't exist. They simply don't exist, honestly. Like even though my mom is towards that spectrum of Bible thumpy, like if you see like from other parents that I've seen from other denominations, she's not even like she's really not that bad, honestly. So I went to an Anglican school as well for most of my primary school. And even then, it really wasn't so. Uh, it was just like the Christian culture in general and Christian traditions in general. It wasn't really so much the condemnation and like fire and brimstone type thing. Till I went to high school and I joined a Catholic school. Everything they say about Catholic schools is fucking true. They are some of the most. They are the dens of the fuck. They literally are the dens of Satan, honestly. Catholic schools? Oh man. Oh man. Mm-mm. Mm-mm. Oh man. Like it's so weird because we would have Friday. Oh, was it Friday? Yeah, there would be like Friday mass for the whole school. Yeah, the entire fucking school would fit in that church. There was Friday mass for the whole school. But then there was like a split between like the Catholics and then the Protestants and then like all the other religions, whatever, right? And so everybody would go and have uh their own sort of Friday sermon type thing. And I think also it was on Friday for the few Muslim students as well. Everyone would have that religious time, right? But at the same time, the it was such a nice contrast. It was such a, well, not a nice contrast, but it was such a contrast between an Anglican school and a Catholic school because you can see just how I really understand why the the Church of England split off from the Catholic Church. Like they formed their very own church because Anglicanism is just Catholicism, but more chilled, right? We still do communion. We still do like we still do communion and then like certain other things, baptism, of course. But there's no really focus on Mary. There's no confession. There's no. uh It's generally a somewhat better off version of Christianity. The only thing I give it a like 10 points off for is just being British. Simply being British is enough, right? So I think it was me joining Catholic school that led me to hate Christianity the way I did, because I just saw so much hypocrisy in how people would carry themselves and the things that they would say. Uh, in like, if it's really God that you're talking to, what is the need for all these freaking ceremonies? And especially if it's the God of the New Testament, what is the need for all this freaking standing on ceremony and just pointless ass rituals, to be honest? Really fucking pointless. But they will fucking swear to the end of their days that if you don't do it like this, the way it's done like this, you need to you go and burn in hell or go to purgatory. They don't even know what the fuck. They can't even keep up with it at this point. And I remember one time during Friday Mass, I went to take communion. That was the only other fun thing I found in church. It's just drinking wine. Like, you have a little snack, right towards the end of the service. So I'm like, ooh, wine, ooh, bread, ooh, okay, So I did that, but in the Catholic Mass. But I'm Anglican, right? So, one of the teachers saw me and she was like, "Oh, I didn't know you were Catholic." And I'm like, "I'm not Catholic, I'm Anglican." He's like, "You're not Catholic, but you took communion?" Uh, she was fucking hyperventilating. He's like, now, that's not very good. So you're gonna have to do this thing called penance, right? Because it's a sin. And I'm like, I literally looked at her and I'm like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. And I think this was around the time when I started learning about all the fucking horrific shit the Vatican has done and continues to do even now. So, my experience with Christianity, my personal experience with it, it's more so the hypocritical aspect. But then, of course, they'll say, oh, you have to worship yourself, you can't worship with other people, blah, blah, blah. But then, now that comes into the doctrine itself. Because I would always wonder, like, so my friends who aren't in the same denomination as me or who aren't of a different religion as me, are they going to go to hell as well? But they're really nice people, you know, they're really good people. They do good things as well. They're just humans like me. Why would they have to go to hell just because they're not believing in my particular brand of my religion, right? And I felt like it wasn't enough. I felt like it was a very hollowed out sense of spirituality that Christianity provides. Very hollowed out. Like, there's very few people who can be there's people who are just naturally predisposed to that type of spirituality and kindness who will do pretty well in any religion. But that's just how they are, right? Regardless of the religion they're part of. I found Christianity to be very wanting, very contradictory in the Old and New Testaments, and that's even before I started really reading into it, because it was the slaughtering of the Amalekites, the verse where they slaughtered the Amalekites. I remember reading it so vividly, and that was one of the things that started me questioning it, because I was like, wait, God is commanding for an entire race of people to be wiped out, completely wiped out? What the fuck? Like, what could they have done that was so bad that God himself would command people to wipe another culture off the face of the earth? And that till now, I have seen the most egregious levels of justification for horrific shit on behalf of, like, by Christians, by apologists, by the way, right? To me, Christianity has been a mechanism for justifying the most horrific crimes against humanity. Christianity in particular, right? Because Christianity placed itself as a rejection of the old covenant, the old, oh, not necessarily a rejection, but yeah, it was a rejection because they said the Jews were doing this and that, and that's why God had forsaken them, and now He's expanded His kingdom to the rest of the world, and He's expanded His covenant to the rest of the world. Blah blah blah. You would expect better from them, but really, not only did they not do better, they did a whole lot worse, right? Because, and you often see this when they talk about paganism, when they talk about eradicating paganism, they'll always bring up child sacrifice. Always, always. It was always going to be. And that sentiment of child sacrifice also carried over into the colonial period. Even though, yes, there were Native American tribes who were doing human sacrifice. Yes. But the fucking Europeans were the last people to come in and fucking and be the glorious saviors. Because first of all, how is it that you find people doing human sacrifice, and then your solution to that is to kill them? Everyone. Right? So there's none of them left now, including the ones who are just going to be victimized anyways. There's none of them left. And mind you, this was at the same time of the Inquisition. The fucking Inquisition in Europe was one of the, it was one of the most brutal campaigns in human history. You should watch Gnostic Antinatalist video about it. He goes in depth. Oh man, it's horrific. So the Spanish were able to justify their levels of sickening brutality. It was so bad that fucking Christopher Columbus was stripped of his titles and arrested by the king and the queen, who were at the forefront of the Spanish Inquisition, of the Inquisition itself. He committed such, I think there was other reasons, probably there was people higher ups who he wasn't giving their proper dues or something like that. But at the same time, his own servicemen were complaining about how brutal he was to the Native Americans. This fucker was a criminal even in his time. So why the hell does he still have a cult right now? I don't understand. But anyways, that's even a tangent. Christianity, if the clergy had held themselves to the standard that exists, even in the contradictory ass sense of Christianity that exists in the Bible, a lot less horrific shit would have happened. Chattel slavery included, because the entire, maybe not the entire reason behind race, but at least a fundamental reason why race exists is because the Europeans at the time realized that once a slave converts to Christianity, they can no longer be enslaved. Those are long-standing rules in the Abrahamic tradition. You could not enslave somebody that was a part of your religion or they converted to. It's called manumission. It exists in Islam and Judaism as well, and other religions, I think. Pretty sure. However, they somehow cooked up a fucking complete asspull of a reason to continue enslaving people who still converted to Christianity. In fact, they literally forced Christianity down their throats, their own particular version of Christianity, going so far as to create their own version of the Bible that they would give to the enslaved Africans. Their own version of the Bible, which removes out a lot of the Bible like the Bible that we know or they knew, a lot of the verses that we know, right? They took out they took out the Exodus. It's what is it called? I think it's called the Slave Bible or something like that. They took out references to the Exodus when the Jews were fleeing Egypt. When Moses, was it Moses? Yes, it was Moses. Yes, when Moses was freeing the Jews from Egypt, they took it out and and here's the crazy thing. If this God actually existed and he was allowing his followers to bastardize, literally fucking bastardize his words, so much so that generations upon generations of enslaved human beings would only believe one tiny piece of his supposed complete narrative, right? That's why I don't see if this God, this Christian God exists, he's nothing less than a demon. He's nothing less than like like everything he says is the opposite of what he says, basically. And to see Christian history play out as it did, as it does, especially in Africa, and how exploitative it is, like the African pastors learn from the American televangelists, like almost word for word, like tactic for tactic. The fucking the fucking miracle healings, the fake demon possession, all that shit. And it's all under a framework of Christianity being the purest religion, right? Where and this is Christianity. This is with Jesus, right? This is not Old Testament Christianity, Old Testament by itself. This is New Testament, right? So this is Jesus. And Jesus himself, he's a confusing character. Because I think there was probably somebody who was an opponent of the Roman Empire at the time, like a dissident, like a Jewish person who was like a political dissident that they probably crucified, and then he became later, he was made into a myth, and then he was made into a god. I think that's how it happened. But at the same damn time, Jesus said the children are untouchable. Like if you bring harm to children, I can't remember exactly what verse it was, but he was like, you're better off like tying a rock to yourself and throwing yourself in a river or something like that, if you cause children to stumble. He did not fuck around when it came to children. And it's so absurd that the fucking Vatican emerged from this this ideology. The Vatican that we know right now. Like, this is why I say the Bible, the God of the Bible, you do the opposite of what he says to do, and that's how you get ahead in this world, and that's how you get his blessings. You do everything opposite. I think that's the secret to why Christianity has stayed on top for so long, because it's not actually a benevolent religion at all. And I'll talk about the Abrahamic religions in general. This is a really good topic because as much as, Christianity is so scrutinized because it was the chosen religion of the colonial powers. It could have been fucking the Greek pantheon. It could have been the Canaanite polytheism. It could have been Norse paganism. And I think those pantheons, those religions are far, far cooler than Christianity by far. But they let Islam slide way too fucking much. Right? I know this is about Christianity, but I'll go deeper into this in another video. It's just more, a God that's that powerful, would he really allow another major religion to come into contention with his sort of final iteration on this plane of existence, if that makes sense, right? Because Jesus was he was the way, the truth, and the life, and everything. He was the ultimate sacrifice for all of humanity, for all of eternity. So how the fuck does Islam emerge like 600 years later and is literally the biggest, like, it's Europe's biggest problem from the moment it emerged till now, literally. How does an omnipotent God let that happen? Right? It's always said that God is not the author of confusion. Well, he's definitely the fucking publisher of it, at least. And even in all that, I still find the Bible to be a very esoteric book. Any Bible, right? It is a very esoteric book, even in English, because the Bible has been written like... That's the confusing thing. I really try and find... This is why I look up biblical scholars now, to really get to the bottom of it, because the Bible was written in ancient Hebrew, Aramaic, and ancient Greek, like separate versions. Yeah. Ancient Aramaic, ancient Hebrew, and ancient Greek, right? The modern Bibles are derived from translations of multiple translations of the originals, which don't even exist, by the way, of those languages. Now, constantly translating into different languages, even translating from Old English to modern English, you will lose a lot of meaning. A lot. Like a lot of fucking meaning. So translating it from old, but at the same time, yes, there were people who were very, very dedicated to making the most accurate translations that they could. Even so, that's not how, language is such a delicate equilibrium. It's such a delicate tool. So I absolutely believe that meanings have been lost within the Bible over time, over and over and over again. And now it's just it is an ideology of convenience more than anything right now. It's an ideology which a lot of people, I think, with enough scientific knowledge that we have right now, they know they don't believe it. They know. But they're too invested in it because of the indoctrination, because of how culturally entrenched it is, and that mechanism of conformity, right? They're too invested in it. So I don't think I really haven't covered it the way I wanted. I'm gonna make multiple videos of it, but this was just my brief thoughts on it. My brief thoughts on it that aren't just usually just shitting on it, which I do all the time, but to really scrutinize it. It's if this God exists, he's just a demon, and he's a very sick one. To be able to allow such horrendous, horrific events to happen under his supposed followers, under his supposed clergy, under the leadership of his supposed clergy, I got a bone to pick with him. I'll say that much.